Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. The new year gives us an opportunity to take a look back at what happened over the last year. Sometimes this look can be of unfortunate or painful things. Other times, it refreshes our memories of things that we were glad happened. Either way, it is good to reflect on what God is doing in the world and how He walks with us through difficult times. With our propaganda media spoon feeding us what they want us to hear and see, it's nice to have news outlets like the Christian Post that are not afraid to cover articles that are of interest to Christians. So when the Christian Post comes out with its top 10 news stories of 2025, I like to cover it and take a look in the rearview mirror, so to speak, and try to learn what we can from it. Some of these stories got national and worldwide attention, but others never made a blip on the legacy media radar screens. All of them, though, made our news stories that helped determine and define what 2025 was all about. So, with that said, I want to get right into the top 10 news stories according to, again, this is the Christian Post. And we start off with, I don't know if I want to call it tragedy, but it is definitely not the best of stories. And 2025 was full of a few of these. Less than a year after he resigned over allegations he sexually abused Cindy Clemenshire during multiple years in the 1980s, beginning when she was 12. Founding pastor of Gateway Church in Southlake, Texas, Robert Morris, was indicted and convicted on those charges in 2025. In March, Morris was indicted on 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a child by a multi-county grand jury in Oklahoma. He would formally surrender and enter a non-guilty plea in court just days after the indictment. Now, on October 2nd, however, Morris pleaded guilty to the charges in exchange for a 10-year suspended prison sentence with the condition that he serve the first 6 months of that time in a county jail. And he is currently in custody at the Osage County Jail in Oklahoma. Quote, he simply accepted responsibility for his crime from the mid-1980s and pled guilty. He pled guilty because he wanted to accept responsibility for his conduct. While he believes that he long since accepted responsibility in the eyes of God and that Gateway Church was a manifestation of that acceptance, he readily accepted responsibility in the eyes of the law by virtue of his guilty plea. This is what Morris's lawyer said in a statement to the Christian Post. He said, quote, he also pled guilty for the sake of finality. Not only did he want to bring this legal matter to a quick end for his own sake and that of his family, he brought it to a quick end for the sake of Miss Clemenshire, who and her family, and he sincerely hopes that his plea and jail sentence, coupled with probation, brings Miss Clemenshire and her family the finality that they might need. Now, while the criminal case was underway, Morris was also engaged in several other legal fights stemming from his time at Gateway Church. This included a bitter pay dispute with the Texas megachurch, in which he is seeking $1 million upfront plus hundreds of thousands more annually in retirement compensation. Morris is also named in a defamation lawsuit filed by the now 55-year-old Cindy Clemenshire and her father, Jerry Lee Clemenshire, seeking compensation for more than $1 million. The filing alleges that Morris and Gateway Church leaders mischaracterized the abuse that she suffered as a consensual relationship with a young lady instead of the sexual assault of a child. quite the difference, right? Well, Texas Fifth Court of Appeals in Dallas has halted all trial court proceedings in the defamation case until a petition for a mandamus review is resolved. The petition for a mandamus review was filed on November 14th by attorneys from Gateway Church and their independent elders John D. Wilbanks and Kenneth W. Fambro II and Dane Minor. It came after Dallas County Court Circuit Judge Emily Torlowski rejected a motion from the church and elders to dismiss the Clemenshire lawsuit, citing the eschatological doctrine. Basically, this doctrine holds that courts lack of jurisdiction over matters of religion. So they're saying, hey, this is a religious matter. We can't be, the courts can't get involved with that. But Ron Bordeaux, a partner at Haynes Boone and counsel for Gateway Church, insisted in a statement to CP after proceedings in the case were stated that Gateway Church should not be part of the Clemenshire's defamation lawsuit. Quote, as we've stated from the beginning, no one in Gateway's current leadership had knowledge of its former pastor's criminal behavior, and they have endeavored to lead the church with integrity and accountability during the difficult time, is what Bordeaux said. These actions, guided by faith, prayer, and steadfastness, commitment to the church community, are protected from by the First Amendment from secular second guessing. So yeah, just an absolute mess going on there with Gateway in the year of 2025. Very unfortunate to see this kind of thing, but it was kind of a tough year for the megachurch, and that is just one example of what happened over the last 12 months. Number 9 was the Catholic school shooting leaves 2 dead and injures several others. This was, again, a tragedy. The trans-identifying shooter, Robin Westman, opened fire on a Catholic school and the students in Minneapolis, Minnesota on August 27th as the young students gathered for Mass at the Church of the Annunciation. Now, 2 students were killed and multiple others were injured. Westman took his own life after committing the mass shootings, and the shooting led to a contentious debate, actually, about the value of thoughts and prayers. I mean, we always get, the gun debate, the we need to ban all guns type thing, but this one kind of turned a little bit on the thoughts and prayers, as well as wishes emerged from the victim's attack. Former White House press secretary Jen Psaki, remember her? We'll circle back, Jen, right? Well, she insisted in an ex-post following the shooting that, quote, prayer is not freaking enough, unquote. Quote, prayers does not end school shootings, unquote, she insisted. She also said prayers do not make parents feel safe sending their kids to school. Prayer does not bring these kids back. Enough with the thoughts and prayers, unquote. So, yeah, she really got into it. Minneapolis Democratic Mayor Jacob Frey offered a similar analysis, though. It wasn't just Jen. He said, don't just say we need thoughts and prayers. These kids were literally in a church praying. Well, while Psaki and Frey suggested that thoughts and prayers were inadequate, I guess, their comments received pushback from 2 prominent religious leaders. Number 1, Greg Laurie, he's the pastor of the California-based Harvest Church, and the Reverend Franklin Graham, the CEO of Samaritan's Purse and the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. Quote, "Those who criticize prayer could not be more mistaken." This is what Lori wrote in a social media post reacting to the negative comments about the thoughts and prayers. He said, "Yes, it is heartbreaking that children were praying when they were shot in the church in Minneapolis." Lori added that, "Yet let us remember that Christ himself prayed as he was crucified. Stephen prayed as he was martyred. And countless other courageous Christians lifted their voices to God in their final moments of life." So, yeah, Graham actually added in, he said also, to the critics' thoughts and prayers thing, he stated that your words do not change or diminish the power and importance of prayer. Because someone calls for prayer doesn't mean bad things aren't going to happen or that the emergency is going to disappear. We all know that. He added that prayer is our opportunity to communicate directly with the God of heaven and make our petitions to him. And he vowed to continue to encourage people to pray. Quote, "Satan would like nothing better than to thwart the most vital tool God has given us. That's prayer," is what he added. Millions of dollars were raised for the survivors in the week following the attack, by the way. And the recovery of Sophia Forchus, a 12-year-old girl who was shot in the head and was once predicted to become the third fatality of the mass shooting, was characterized as miraculous. Forchus returned home from the hospital in late October, nearly 2 months after the shooting. So I guess my take on that is that thoughts and prayers seem to have worked a little bit, right, Jen? I mean, again, they're right. Graham and Lori and these guys are correct in that we live in a fallen world. We live on earth that is not heaven. and bad things happen here, and particularly when people sin. This was something that shouldn't happen. This is something we don't want to see happen. This was a tragedy. But when things do happen, and hopefully even before anything happens, people are praying. And people are praying for it not to happen. People are praying for it to be thwarted. People are praying for those involved in it and the families that have to go through tough times. So yes, thoughts and prayers do work, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to stop every single bad thing on earth and create heaven here on earth. Well, moving to number 8, and this was kind of a big thing, particularly amongst Catholics, and that is that Pope Francis, who had led the Roman Catholic Church since his election in March of 2013, died on April 21st after experiencing persistent health problems. Francis' death led to a papal conclave where members of the College of Cardinals gathered in Rome to elect his successor on a secret ballot. Now, while many high-profile officials within the Catholic Church were speculated as frontrunners to emerge as Francis's successor, the eventual election of who would become the 267th Bishop of Rome was seen as somewhat of a surprise. Yeah, after 4 rounds of voting, American-born Cardinal Robert Prevost was elected on May 8th as the new head of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, Prevost, the first American pope in the history of the Roman Catholic Church, took the name of Leo XIV upon his election. Prevost, who is a native to Chicago, Illinois, has spent considerable time in Peru, and in the 1980s, his ministry work was in Chulachones, Peru. He spent a decade as a community prior formation director and professor in Trujillo, Peru. He returned to the U.S. in 1999 to serve as a provisional in the Augustinian province of Chicago. The province identifies its mission as to search, quote, for God in our community by sharing our lives, goods, and spiritual journey with each other and the people of God, unquote. Now, after over a decade with the Augustinian province, he returned to Peru in 2014, where he became an apostolic administrator of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Chiclayo, Peru, and he was appointed bishop of the diocese a year later, holding the position for 8 years. Well, in 2023, Prevost was elevated to the role of cardinal, and at the time of his election as pope, he served as the prefect of the diastery of bishops, I guess is what they call that. Again, not being Catholic, some of this is I'm probably going to slaughter name-wise, but throughout his papacy, which is now in its 7th month, Pope Leo XIV has made responding to the challenges associated with the development of artificial intelligence a top priority. I think we might see that come up here in one of the top 10, but we'll see. He has also expressed disappointment about what he describes as practical atheism, which he defined as the reduction of Jesus Christ to a kind of charismatic leader or a Superman, unquote. In remarks to the Vatican diplomatic corps, a week into his papacy, Leo pointed to the family, founded upon the stable union between a man and a woman, as essential in the creation of harmonious and peaceful civil societies. Which again, that was a good statement. I mean, that was bold and good for him. He also stressed the importance of striving to ensure respect for the dignity of every person, especially the most frail and vulnerable, from the unborn to the elderly, from the sick to the unemployed, the citizens and immigrants alike. So Pope Leo XIV has also weighed in on American politics throughout the year, though, suggesting that someone who says that I'm against abortion, but I'm in agreement with inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants who are in the United States is not pro-life. yeah, he kind of stepped in it on that one. He also expressed his belief that every country has a right to determine who and how and when people enter, while condemning what he referred to as the extremely disrespectful treatment of illegal immigrants in the U.S. Again, I don't know exactly what he's referring to there, because obviously when we remove illegal aliens from our country and we arrest them and we send them back, I mean, that's on our dime. We're paying for them to be shipped back to their country of origin, and if there is, if there are criminals, I mean, we have sent some of them to El Salvador and prisons there and things, but again, there's nothing inhumane about what we're doing. And so, again, not exactly sure what he's referring to, but he's said some good things and he's said some questionable things, and we'll see how that goes in 2026. Well, another unfortunate, I guess, is probably the best way to put it, is that CCM star Michael Tate, the longtime frontman for the Newsboys and a founding member of DC Talk, he faced mounting allegations of sexual misconduct and drug use in 2025 that sparked a police investigation. And it also cost his band its record deal and triggered a broader reckoning within the Christian music industry. The scandal erupted in early June after investigative reporting detailed accusations of multiple men who said Tate made unwanted sexual advances toward them, sometimes while they were intoxicated or impaired. The allegations, which date back roughly 2 decades, described patterns of grooming, drug use, and inappropriate behavior during tours and private encounters. Days after the initial reports, Tate, who abruptly left the Newsboys in January after serving as the frontman for 15 years, believe it or not, published a public statement acknowledging that many of the allegations were, quote, largely true. He admitted to long-term cocaine and alcohol abuse and what he called unwanted sensual contact, and said that he had lived a double life for years while maintaining a prominent platform in Christian music, and revealed that he had spent 6 weeks in a Utah treatment center for addiction and emotional recovery. While taking responsibility for much of the behavior described by the God's Not Dead singer, disputed he did dispute some details, but did not actually specify which ones that he was disputing. So he said not everything was correct, but he didn't get into any more detail than that. Now, as public scrutiny intensified, additional accusers came forward, and some described being incapacitated by drugs or alcohol at the time of the encounters, while other reports involved a woman who said that she was drugged and raped by a Newsboy crew member during a tour. The growing number of accounts has prompted law enforcement to get involved, and police in Brentwood, Tennessee, confirmed that they were reviewing at least one criminal complaint filed against Tate, and have encouraged others with information to contact investigators there. The fallout within the Christian music industry has been swift, though. Newsboys, one of the most commercially successful and influential Christian bands of now the last 30 years, was dropped by Capital Christian Music Group following Tate's admission. The remaining members of Newsboys, Jeff Frankenstein and Jody Davis, Duncan Phillips, and Adam Eggy, released a statement expressing horror, heartbreak, and anger, and said that they felt deceived by Tate, who they said admitted in January to have living that double life. Quote, when he left the band in January, Michael confessed to us and our management that he had been living a double life, is what the band wrote. They said, but we never imagined that it could be this bad. Major Christian radio networks, including K-Love, removed both Newsboys and DC Talk songs featuring Tate from the rotation. Some stations implemented broader bans on his music as the additional allegations emerged. Quote, we have arrested Newsboys and DC Talk from our separate decades streams online as we watch, pray, and try to understand the situation better, is what a K-Love spokesman told the Christian Post in June. Some fellow musicians, like Skillet's John Cooper, publicly condemned Tate's actions and urged the industry to confront long-standing patterns of secrecy. Others, like Reckless Love singer Corey Asbury, and said that people within the CCM ecosystem had been aware to varying degrees that something was wrong, but felt unable or unwilling to speak. Now, Tate has not issued additional statements since his June admission. Police and industry officials say their inquiries are ongoing. So, again, another kind of scandal that came down within the Christian community in 2025, and not so pleasant, but, these things do come out, and that's biblical. And so it's good that they are being addressed, and hopefully we don't see too many more of those in 2026. Number six, moving on to number six, and this was one that you probably never even heard of when it came to the propaganda media. It was a historic year of sorts for the world's first Christian nation. Yep. Do you know who that is? Armenia, yes, is actually the first Christian nation, as it signed a peace agreement and a memorandum of understanding amid decades of territorial conflict with neighboring Azerbaijan. The country also saw domestic political tensions boil over into a series of controversial arrests of apostolic church leaders and critics of the prime minister there, Nikola Pashinyan. The August 8th peace agreement was signed at the White House, a supported symbolic end to the conflict over the certain region. Is called the Nagorno Karabakh region, which ethnic Armenians they predominantly inhabited that area until more than 120,000 were pushed out of their homes by the Azerbaijan's force in September of 2023. The framework paves the way for a 20-mile transport corridor to be built through the southern Armenia area, which would be a major intercontinental trade route connecting Azerbaijan and Turkey. It would be kind of this commercial trade route there. The project would be managed by the United States, which would provide Armenia the de facto security, basically, as long as the U.S. has a financial stake in that Caucasus region. Now, while the peace agreement could take months or even years, really, to finalize, fears for many Armenians of a full-scale invasion by the Azerbaijan community appear to have been quelled when the Christian Post visited the country in September as part of a delegation trip sponsored by the United States-based advocacy group called Save Armenia. However, the deal is not without its critics, including leaders from Arts governments in exile who are angered by the peace framework as announced, and the fact that it doesn't include a right to return for refugees struggling to socially integrate into Armenia, nor the release of nearly 24 of the Armenian-held captives in Baku. For many, these there is also skepticism that Azerbaijan will uphold the agreement over time. So yeah, a lot going on there. It's something, like I say, you probably haven't heard a lot of. There's been people taken into custody and a lot of even Catholic bishops and things like that that have been outspoken about some of the things going on there, some of the atrocities and things, and then they get all of a sudden they're arrested on on what looks like possible made up charges and things like this. So yeah, it's still a little bit of a mess, but at least the good news is it looks like it's starting to come to an end with this peace agreement. Religious freedom advocates told congressional staffers last month on Capitol Hill that the Pashinyan's actions toward church leadership overstep the bounds of church and state separation and are effectively silencing clergy who are now afraid of government reprisals. Additionally, they believe his actions could threaten the effectiveness of any new relationship Armenia may have with the United States. So again, these were the top, 6 through 10, I guess, news stories of 2025. We're going to have to stop there for today, but we will finish this on our next podcast, and we'll go from 5 to 1. And I would say that the news stories, they get a little better. We covered some heavy ones today, some not so pleasant ones, many of which, except for a peace agreement and things like that. But the one, I would say 5 through all the way up to 1, are somewhat better. And so come back and we will cover those. Otherwise, I'd love to hear from you and what you think of this. And maybe you even have something else that you'd like to throw in here. And I would love to hear from you on that. Of course, that can always be done at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.